Hey everyone, welcome to Dev Cafe. My name is Michael, and this is the first video of an ongoing series called UI Experiments. In this video, I'm going to show you how to make an animated navigation drawer like this one using only HTML and CSS. Let's dive right in. To achieve this staggered navigation effect, my initial instinct was to reach for a JavaScript library like Anime.js or GSAP. That is until I stumbled across this article on CSS tricks that demonstrates a few different approaches to creating this kind of animation. But the one approach that really stood out to me was at the very end of the article, in which the author uses CSS variables to achieve this kind of a staggered effect. And this is exactly the approach that I'll be taking in this tutorial to create this navigation. Okay, so what I've got here is an empty VS Code project. And on the right side of my screen, I've got a Google Chrome browser. And in one of the tabs, I'm going to have the actual final result of the page that we'll be creating. So first thing I'm going to do is create an index. Oops. Try that again. An index.html file. I'm gonna just create a bare bones skeleton and give it a title. CSS variables. Staggered animations. Next, I'll create the style.css file that'll house all of our styles, and I'm going to link it up to the documents. And the other thing I'll do is add a normalize CSS to clean up any browser inconsistencies. Actually, I'm gonna go to JS deliver, which is a CDN for stuff like this, and I will type in normalize CSS, and really the only thing I need is this CSS file, so I'll just copy the HTML and drop it right in here. Okay, so that should do it for my for the head of the document. Next thing I'll do is create the basic structure of the page. So we'll have a header. After that, we'll have the main tag, which will house the hero section as well as the about section. This section with the background, as well as this about section with some lorem ipsum text. And inside of that will be two section elements. And this one is going to have a class of hero, and this other one will have a class of about. And up here in the header will be our menu button, as well as the actual drawer that slides down from the top. But first we're going to lay out these two sections on the bottom, and then towards the very end, we will create this menu button as well as the navigation drawer. Okay, so for now, I'm gonna, just to test that the page is in fact set up, I will create an h1 tag that says hello world. Okay, now I'm gonna right click on index.html and click on Open with Live Server to reveal my page in the browser. And I'm using this Live Server plugin for Visual Studio Code, which you can download just from the extension marketplace. And it's just called Live Server. As you can see, I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it, but you can go in and install it, or really use pretty much any other server library or a plugin that can serve an HTML page. But what's neat about Live Server is that I can make changes and hit save, and it'll immediately reflect those changes in the browser. Okay, so now that our page is displaying in the browser, I will go ahead and start laying out this hero section. So for now, I'm going to delete this h1 tag, and next we'll have a div tag that will serve as a container, and then inside of that will be the h1 tag that'll say hello world, and then right under that an h2 tag that says we make awesome websites. Okay, so there's that. All right, next is the about section. So I'm gonna just put in an h2 tag here. Actually, I also need to place the container inside of here. And then will be the h2 tag that says about us. And under that will be just a paragraph tag with some lorem ipsum text. I'm going to collapse my sidebar because I don't think we'll be creating any more files in the project. And just to make this more interesting, I will just copy this paragraph tag twice. Okay, so that's the hero and the about sections. And now we're gonna lay out this menu bar and this navigation drawer. So the first thing I'll do is create an input of type checkbox. I'm gonna call it menu, and also give it an ID of menu. And I'm gonna use this BEM style naming convention. So I'll call it menu btn checkbox. Now, because I'm going to be using CSS to trigger this animation, I'm going to need to have a label, actually two labels, because initially the text will say menu on the button, and then when I click it, it'll change over to close. So I'll need two labels, one that says menu and the other one that says close. So menu, and I'll do menu there as well. And then I'm just gonna copy this down to close. And then these two are gonna have a class as well. So we'll say menu button __ label. And then because we're gonna want to target each one of these individually, they'll also have a modifier of menu button label -- menu, and then I'll just copy this over into this one and change this one to close. And then the last piece will be this this drawer down here. So let's switch back to our preview here. So as you see, we've got our menu and close labels there, and each one of these will either check or uncheck the checkbox. So the last part will be the div with a class or nav drawer. And then now the trick here, if you're gonna do this with a checkbox and only use CSS to trigger this, you'll definitely want to make sure that the input or the checkbox is at the same level in your DOM as the nav drawer or the thing that you will be triggering. If you choose to trigger this with JavaScript, you can place this pretty much anywhere on the page and just use like an ID to trigger it. Okay, and now inside of the nav drawer div, we will have the another div called nav drawer _ info. And then inside of here will be an h2 tag let's say start conversation, and then so that's this piece here, and then right under that will be an h3 tag, and this will also be an a tag that will be an email link, and the email link will be info at logo agency. Gosh, my typing is so off. And then the text will be the same, info at logoagency.com. All right, so something like that. I promise we're getting to the good part here, so just bear with me as I lay out the rest of this page. So then we're gonna have the three main navigation menu items, and that will be an unordered list tag with a list inside. All right, let's try that again. ULLI, I think is, yep, that's how you do it. Okay, cool. And this one will have an a tag inside of it as well. And for now, I'm just gonna put that going to nowhere. It'll say home, and then let's make 3 copies of this. This one will say about, and the one down below will say blog. And then the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create these inline styles that will assign an animation order value to each one of these navigation elements. So basically this will initialize a scoped CSS variable and give it a value of 1, so animation order 1, and then I'm gonna copy this over to here, and you will see once we get to the CSS portion, you'll see how this is going to get used in the animation. So so this will be 1, 2, 3, and that's because we want these revealed first. So this will go first, second, third, and then the fourth element will slide down from the top, and that's this whole info section. So I'm gonna go here and give it a style, inline style element, and give it an animation order value of 4. Okay, so that's it for the HTML, and now let's jump right into the CSS. So with the HTML out of the way, this is what our page looks like. Obviously not very pretty, but this is where we're gonna add some style. So I'm gonna start with just some general HTML and body styles. So I'm gonna just paste these over from my documents, and this will establish it our HTML and body as box sizing of border box. Next will be this main container, will be a container element that I'll paste in here, and this will kind of house everything and limit it to a max width of 1200 pixels so that we don't go edge to edge on larger screens with our text. So next I'm going to lay out this, or I'm going to style this main hero section with this gradient background, as well as this about section, which really doesn't have that much styling. It's mainly just the paddings here and the I think the margins between the sections. So let's grab the hero styles here. So I'm gonna say just make a comment here, hero, and the hero section will have display flex, and then we're gonna justify content center to make sure everything is vertically centered inside of it. Next, the flex direction will be column. After that, we're gonna want to position this relative. The color of the text inside of it will be white. So Now we no longer see it because it's the same color as the background. The height of this section will be just a static pixel value of 900 pixels. So there's that. The padding will be 0 top and bottom, and then 2 rems units from the edges of the screen. And then the background will have, background will be this linear gradient, which I'll just paste in from my sample code here. And I just grabbed this online. I think it there's a bunch of websites that generate CSS gradients. So pick anyone and just copy the values. Doesn't really matter. But yeah, so that generates our CSS gradient in the background. So as you can see, now we've got this hero section. And then next, I'm gonna give this an overflow value of auto. Actually, I don't even think I need this. So let's just get rid of that. All right, so then next, we'll increase the size of this H1 text. So hero H1, and that one will have a font weight of 200 and font size of 5 rems, just to make it a little bigger and stand out more. The margin will be 0 to bring it a little closer to this tagline. And then hero H2 will be the next thing we'll style, and all I'm gonna do is just change the font weight here to be 400 and make it a little bit thinner. Okay, so that looks pretty close to what we have here. Actually, I think it's identical. And the next part will be this about section down below, and there's really not a whole lot we're gonna do. So I'm gonna just create a comment here and say about. And then about will have padding top and bottom of 5 rem units, and just like the hero section, it'll have padding left and right of 2 rem units. Rem. And then position will be relative, and that's pretty much it for the about section. All right, so now comes the fun part, the actual interactive element of the page. Let's create that down below, and I will create a comment, say navigation. Okay, so before I begin styling the navigation, I forgot to wrap this whole thing into a nav element. So let's just do that right now. So now all of this is housed inside of the nav elements, and then that nav element will have a class of, you guessed it, nav. And also, another thing I forgot is we're also going to use this, our generic container elements to nest the rest of these elements inside of, because we also want the inside of the nav to have the same maximum width as well as the padding from left and right. All right, and so that'll do that, and let's get back into the styles. Okay, so the first thing I'll do is style the main nav section, and it's gonna have a display flex, and then we will also want to align items center. So basically we want this everything inside of this sort of a nav bar to be vertically centered. It'll have a z index of 1 because we will always want it to be on top. And then the background color will be transparent. Height will be 70 pixels. So like that. And so this sort of creates this kind of like an invisible nav bar element, and we're gonna actually position it fixed, so that it is basically whenever we scroll on the page, it'll always stay up top and stuck to the very top of the viewport. Next is the positioning, so left 0, right 0, and that'll stretch it end to end. Top 0 as well. I believe some browsers require you to put a top value as well. Color will also be white, so white color for text, and padding will be 0 to rem. I could probably, because I'm using the same value, 0 to rem here, and in the about section, there's probably, if I was to refactor this, I could probably create like a CSS variable at the root that'll just have a 2 rem value of container padding. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I will leave it as just a hard-coded value inside of each one of these sections. Nav container, so this will handle the styling of the inner container of the nav, and this will have a display flex box, and we're gonna say justify content space, but actually justify content flex end, so that'll place all of the elements on the right hand side. Next you will have a vertical alignment of center to place everything vertically inside of here. And now our checkboxes have appeared again. So the next piece is the styling of the 2 labels as well as the checkbox. So the first thing we'll want to do is actually hide the checkbox. So it'll still be in the DOM, but it'll be hidden, because what we really care about are these 2 labels here. And because they're the ones that are controlling the value of this checkbox. So I'll say menu button double underscore checkbox, give it a visibility of hidden. So now it's gone. So the labels, button double underscore label. We're gonna want to give the labels a z index of 1 as well. Do a text transform of uppercase. Let's give it a cursor of pointer so that it looks like an actual clickable element, as well as the letter spacing of 0.2 rem units to create a little more space between them. So initially, just like in the demo here, we're gonna want to make sure that we can only see the menu text, and then when you click on the actual label, it'll change over into the close. Initially, the menu button label -- close will have a display value of none. So now we only see the menu item. But when the checkbox is checked, we're gonna want to make sure that the menu button label menu is no longer visible. So we'll set its display value to none. And so when I click it, it's no longer visible. However, we're gonna want to make sure that close is now visible. So similarly, I'm just gonna copy this down. We're gonna want to say close is display block. So now When I click menu, it switches over to close, and when I click close, it switches back over to menu. This is exactly why we had to place these elements as siblings of each other, because we could use the sibling method to essentially target all of the elements that are siblings of the checkbox. And so as you can imagine, we'll probably use the same pattern to trigger this navigation drawer, which is exactly what we'll do next. But first, let's style the whole navigation drawer before we trigger its animation. Okay, so next I will create a new section here with a comment and call it nav drawer. And then inside of here, I will target the nav drawer class. And it'll also have a position of fixed, because when it is open, we'll want to make sure that it stays open when I scroll the page down below. It'll have a position of fixed as well. And now you see that our menu element is actually moved to the right spot because it is no longer affected by all of this here. It's gonna have a background color of black, and it'll have display. It'll be a flex box, so display flex. Z index will be 0. And the reason it's gonna have a Z index of 0 is because this has a Z index of 1, and when you open the drawer, you're gonna want to make sure that the label stays on top of the drawer. Because if it goes under the drawer, then we'll have no way of actually closing this. So that's why we gave these labels a Z index of 1, so that they stay on top. Align items center, left 0, right 0, top 0, and then again the padding will be 0 to rem, just so it kind of aligns with everything else here. Height will be 500 pixels. Initially, we'll want to keep this hidden, so it'll have a transform value. Translate y of -100%, so that it is out of the way and sort of hanging out at the very top here. And then once we click on this menu item, we'll change this value to 0 and it'll slide down from the top. So just for now, I'm gonna set this to 0 just so we can style the rest of this. And then we're gonna give it a transition, because we do want this to actually have a transition when it slides down. Nav drawer container, and this is all the stuff inside of the container here, and have a position relative, display flex, and then forgot a semicolon there. Justify content flex start, and then align items flex start as well. And then next we'll style the navigation items here. So nav drawer UL element, and it'll have a list style of none, which will get rid of these little bullets. Margin of 0, width 40%, text will be aligned to the left, font size of 3.5 rem units, so a little larger, and then font weight will be 200, so thin it out a little bit. Line height will be 1.5 just to create some separation between the elements. Text transform will be uppercase. So text transform uppercase. Next thing, we're gonna want to change the color of these links and remove the underline. So nav drawer ul li anchor tag, and the color will just be we'll just inherit the color because we already set the color of the parent element to be white. So if we just inherit, it'll inherit the parent's color. To remove the underline, we'll do text decoration of none. So that got rid of the underline. Transition, and we're only going to transition the opacity here. So opacity, and this will just be for the hover effect. So 0.3 seconds, ease in, out. And then now on hover, we're just gonna change the color slightly to be gray, just so it looks like an interactive element. Nav drawer ul li a hover, hover, and then the color will be dark gray, or just gray maybe. Oh, so it won't be opacity, actually it'll be color, or there we go. So now we've got a nice smooth transition to a different color. Okay, so that'll do it for the nav elements. Next I will style this section on the left hand side. So let's move down to nav drawer info. Have a display value of flex. Flex direction will be column. Justify content, flex end, width of 60%. We gave this a width of 40% and then this the width of 60%. So the navigation is slightly offset to the right, but in total, the whole thing takes up the width of 100%. And then nav drawer info h2 tag. We'll have a font size of 1 rem. So this is that start conversation text. Font weight will be 200. Margin will be 0. Okay, so next we're gonna style this link, and that's actually gonna be the last part of the styling of the text. So nav drawer info h3 anchor tag, and the font size will be 1.5 rem units. Font weight will be 200 to thin it out a little bit. Color will be gray as well, so that we don't have that generic blue link color. Okay, so that's gonna be it for the layout of the navigation drawer. Now, as you see, we still don't have any sort of slide out transition. So let's hook that up next. All right, so the first thing we'll have to do is change this value back to -100% to get the drawer out of the way. When the menu button checkbox is checked, we will use the sibling method to target the nav drawer and transform translate y, and then set it back to 0 so that when I click on this it appears. However, for some reason our transition here is not working. Oh, you know why? Because we need to put seconds here. And now it works. Awesome. So we've got the basic slide out working. And now the last part, and really the main purpose of this tutorial, is to show you how we can get these to reveal themselves in a staggered fashion, one after another in a sequence. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is create 2 sets of animations. The first set will be for the menu items, and the second animation will be for the start conversation info section thingy. Create a keyframe animation and call it nav items. And animate in. Words are sometimes really difficult. Okay, so at 0%. The opacity will be 0. Transform value will be -40 pixels, because we're gonna want these to sort of start out at like -40 pixels, so they'll be pushed out of the way and have an opacity of 0. When the animation is triggered, or when this drawer is opened, the item will move 40 pixels to the right and go from an opacity of 0 to opacity of 1. -40 pixels, and then at 100% we'll want the opacity to be 1, and transform translate x to be 0. And then the next animation will be this one here, and this one will have keyframes nav info animate in at 0%. This will be very similar to the one that we created above, but instead of vertical offset, or instead of the horizontal offset, it'll be a vertical offset. So it'll start at opacity of 0, and then transform translate y will be -40, because it'll start out from the top and at 100%. Opacity will be 1, and transform translate y will be at 0. Okay, when the checkbox is checked, we will trigger these animations, and we'll do that by placing in. So let's give this a comment of animation keyframes. Oh, there we go. Okay, and then the last part will be this. So we'll target the sibling element of nav drawer, and then li element, and the li elements are each one of these. So li elements will have an animation name of nav items animate in. The animation duration, let's just say about 700 milliseconds. And so this is where the magic happens, actually. So this is where the CSS variables that we created here will be used to calculate the animation delay. So calc, we use the calc function, which comes with CSS, and then we will say variable animation order. Each one will be offset by 100 milliseconds. So 100 milliseconds. So in our case, it will be 1 times 100, so 100 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds, 300 milliseconds, and then for the last element will be 400. Animation fill mode both. Oh, forgot a semicolon here. Animation timing function will be is in out. So this should now reveal these one after another. Beautiful. The last part. So I'm gonna just copy and paste this because it'll be pretty much identical, except the only difference here is we'll do nav drawer instead of the li. It will be nav drawer info. Here will be nav info animate in navigation, which I'll just copy from here and paste over. And look at that, beautiful. So every time I open this, these elements will reveal themselves sequentially with absolutely zero JavaScript and everything done purely with CSS. Now, what I love about this method is that it does not depend on like an nth value target inside of CSS. So what that really means to me is that if my HTML template is generated or rendered by a CMS of some kind, or maybe it might be rendered by some JavaScript framework, all I have to do is just append an index of whatever thing I'm iterating through into each one of these, and I can have 10 or 15 items, and in my CSS all of that calculation is going to happen based on this animation order variable that I'm going to declare in each one of these elements. And that makes the whole thing pretty scalable and would not require much maintenance every time a new navigation element was added to the website. And here's how things would look on desktop as well. So this will be revealed just like that. Okay, my friends, I think that will do it. If you found this video helpful, please make sure to give it a thumbs up and like the video. If you have any questions or comments, make sure to leave them down below in the comments section. If you want to see more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe to the Dev Cafe YouTube channel, and I'll see you in the next one.